Welcome to Rajkot Talk, the podcast where we like to spotlight the voices who inspire and empower. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Zaheera Dadabhay, all the way in Malaysia. Zaheera is a passionate educator with a master's degree in education and a wealth of international experience in teaching from Brunei to the UAE and now in Malaysia. She's embraced teaching not just as a career, but as a passport to the world. So, whether you're exploring TEFL or curious about working abroad, or maybe looking for your next big move in education, Zaira's journey will truly give you some insight and inspiration, perhaps even a roadmap to get you started. Welcome to Roshko Talk, Zaira.
Thank you, Shakira. Thank you for having me on.
And thank you so much for joining us. And Zaira, let's get right into it. I'm personally so excited to hear about your adventures and your experience, and I've been looking forward to this the entire week. So let's get into it. And I just want to ask you, like, from the beginning, what made you decide to teach abroad? How did it start, and what was your experience like?
Shakira, I've always wanted to travel. I've always had this intense desire to see the world. As a little girl, from about 12 years old, I had about 30 to 40 pen pals from all
Wow.
over the world. And I would spend hours and weekends and holidays writing long letters, posting them, receiving letters from different countries, seeing the different country stamps, envelopes, girls from across the world. I had friends from Malaysia, Egypt, Tunisia, the Americas. So, they would send me like papyrus drawings, pictures,
Wow.
the Statue of Liberty, photographs. So I think this was just like the first step towards like, just wanting to see the world.
Yes. And you know what? That's something I think that today in the fast-paced generation with technology and we have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and the works. We don't have that thrill of, like you say, getting an envelope with
Yeah,
a name that's been addressed to you. You mentioned the stamps. I also had pen pals around the world. I also had a pen pal from Egypt and Turkey, by
yeah,
the way. And it was so exciting. I can definitely resonate with learning about different cultures and wanting to explore. So that's quite a rich experience you've shared in terms of now actually getting to love it and go and see the country yourself. And
yeah.
it's nice to know the background to where they happen. And for those who are looking to follow a similar path, Sarah, in terms of teaching, what are the qualifications you require for South Africans who want to teach overseas? And I know there are different requirements in different countries, but if you could just break it down a little bit, that would be great.
So certain countries like UAE, Oman, Qatar, they more strict regarding qualifications. They want you to have a bachelor's of education, and they've become more stricter now that it's got to be specialized in the subject you're going to teach.
Yes.
So then we get the other countries like Saudi Arabia, where it's much easier to get in, having any degree you're
Okay.
able to teach. So
Yes.
even if you studied finance, you could possibly get a degree teaching accounting, business, economics, and you could even lecture in Saudi with any type of degree as well. So Saudi is much more easier to get in. And then, as we were discussing earlier in the week regarding the TEFL certification, which is a very quick and easy certification, and there's so many different companies that offer it at various prices as well. But countries like Vietnam, Taiwan, Korea, Turkey, a lot of the Asian countries will take you with a TEFL degree to teach English at like a language school. So overseas English language centers is a very big thing. Obviously it's not their native language, so there's like thousands of people wanting to just learn basic English
Yes.
for work, for communication. So there's these language schools all over. So you could easily get in having the TEFL certification. Salaries are not as good and the perks are not as good as having a degree teaching in say UAE.
Yeah.
But if you like a single and you don't have too many responsibilities, you could come out, make a living and travel while you're in that country.
Yes, yes. And I think it also, like you mentioned, it all depends on your situation. TEFL allows you to maybe pivot from another degree in
Yes.
these countries, like the Asian countries, as you say, but it's your
Yeah.
situation. Like if you're a single traveler, it's easy, but if you have a family, like for example, with myself, there's a little bit more to consider. So what I like
Yes.
from what you said, Zayda, it gives you an idea of what's accessible for which countries and also, in terms of the challenges that you face working abroad, like there's a lot to consider, right? You touched on some of them. For example, if I have a family, there's a lot of transition. I guess it's not just for yourself; it's for your family members. Also, like how do you overcome it? In terms of getting your mind wrapped around it, it's a big change, but it's a big opportunity as well. If you could just
Yeah.
touch on the challenges maybe that you faced or that you see other South African teachers facing and some pointers to overcome it.
For me, the biggest challenge is working with people who lack like leadership skills. Because coming from South Africa, all South Africans, I think, are born leaders. We are confident. We are a confident nation. We're confident speakers. We're hardworking. We have a strong work ethic, and we're very passionate about everything we do. But only when you work and travel abroad, you realize everyone's not like this. So a lot of nations, and you wouldn't want to categorize all of them, but they're very laid back. And when you're out there, you realize people lack leadership skills and people are unable to get things done.
Yes,
Either they lack the confidence or they lack the skills or like they're just afraid to do things without the superior's permission. South Africans will just go ahead and do stuff. So this is a huge challenge because obviously when you start off, you can't just go off and do things because you're not in management and you
yes,
don't have the permission. So you got to work up to that point to prove yourself and to let them see that you can and let them believe that you're able to get the opportunity to show them your skills. So that's for me was the most frustrating thing, and even now because you have people in these leadership positions unable to really do the job and you could do it better. So and you can't also be verbal or outspoken or straightforward as South Africans are because you're going to become rude. You don't want to insult the person, especially if they're local.
yes,
um, so you got to just be very patient and at many times just bite your tongue and just do your job and get on with it. For other people, I know the challenges they face is being away from family, not having housekeepers, missing South African foods. So those are all the smaller challenges that you learn to overcome within time. But wherever you at, you do make this community and friends that become your family. And it doesn't only have to be South Africans. You meet a lot of people from all different countries. Canada, UK, New Zealand, Jordan, Syria, Palestine, and you really bond and become a family and lean on each other.
yes. And I think from everything you mentioned, I just want to appreciate it was real talk. Thank you for keeping it real because sometimes we often think, the grass is greener on the other side and we expect a smooth transition and then we get a bit disheartened when things don't go our way. So these are nice pointers to look out for. And what I also like that you mentioned is like the leadership skills in South Africa. Sometimes we sell ourselves short. We often
Yeah,
get into a complacent mode that this is not working, the potholes, the electricity, etc. But there's a lot to celebrate, and maybe the factor that could be frustrating in management could also be like when you're working abroad. It could also be a defining factor for you to stand out and, like you said, to prove to yourself that you're capable and you come with a background that makes you this capable. So I really like that positive reinforcement with the general nature of South African teachers. And let's shift to the classroom experience, Zaida. Like, What would you say compares in terms of a South African classroom setup and then working with kids in a classroom overseas? How do teachers get their mind, around that? What's the difference like?
So, one of the major differences, which you don't expect, came as a huge shock to me when I just first took a job in Sharjah, one of my first jobs, was the behavior. You don't expect you're going to have an issue or a problem with behavior management. And then you don't realize that in South Africa, we don't actually have severe behavior management issues.
Hmm.
So that was a very big difficulty for me. And in fact, my first two jobs, I didn't even complete the year. I came back to South Africa thinking that it's not for me. It's too difficult. I had like a huge culture shock.
Sure.
So, now that I know the difficulties, I, try to train and counsel um, people before they leave to know
Yes.
what they in for, what to do when you're faced with these problems. And I think now that it's like almost a decade of so many South Africans that have moved abroad, that people give their opinions and help and suggestions on how to tackle these situations when you get into the classroom, so it doesn't come in as a shock.
Yes.
So behavior management is one of the most difficult things we face, I would say, in the Middle East, because currently I'm in Malaysia, and the clientele is more Chinese and Korean in the area I'm in, Johor Bahru. So the Chinese are a total different nation altogether as well. They're very cultured, very hardworking. So it's been a huge difference coming from the Middle East, and it's much easier. But then the stress comes from other ways, like from the parents demanding, a very high scores, and things like that. The second difference is the difference in curriculum.
Yes.
So the way we teach altogether is totally different to how they teach in overseas, where they look at teaching and learning as new age teaching and learning, where everything is more hands-on and concrete concepts, like not just a book and textbook and chalk and talk.
Yes.
So your whole way of thinking and designing your lessons like changes, and it has to change because this is what's required of you when you're teaching abroad. The positive thing is that when you move abroad into a school, they do give you all the training that you need, professional development. You meet a lot of colleagues. Like my first set of very close colleagues in Abu Dhabi was from America, like middle age American ladies that were so tech savvy that we were like far behind. This was about
Sure.
at least about 10 years ago. And I was just shocked at how tech savvy these 50-year-old American women were, because they've been using technology for the last 20 years. And for us, it was still a new concept. It was the first time I was taking even like registration on an app. So
Wow.
everything was done on an app. There was just like no paper trail. The lesson planning was done online. And 10 years ago, we were just first using links onto lesson plans. It was a new thing. So I had a lot to learn. Also coming from, coming from South Africa, where I didn't really use technology in the classroom at all. I remember the ladies asking me how much of technology did we use in South Africa, and I said none, and they were like shocked.
Yeah.
But it was a really warm, amazing experience, that these ladies were so kind and helpful.
Yeah.
And I'm still really close to them. It's like almost a decade now. We keep on Facebook. They've taught me so much. They've helped me grow. One of the ladies inspired me to do my master's with an American university, and they were real guides. Like I didn't know if you did a master's um, at an American university, or most overseas universities, that you didn't need an honors. I
Yes.
did have an honors in South Africa, but just for people to know that if you don't have an honors, you can continue on to a master's with any other overseas university.
Wow, and that's a really good tip, Zara. And with everything you said, I think each teaching environment comes with its own rhythm and culture, and you need to get used to it. And it's so nice that you get to counsel people so that they don't leave with a shock and give up too soon. Because you may be missing out on something that's coming up after you get over the hurdle, but we just disheartened and we think, hey, this is not for me, but we give up too soon. So on that note, in terms of cultural adjustments, that specifically, I don't know if you want to break it up into teachers with a professional teaching degree or TEFL teachers, as you mentioned. What are like the certain cultural differences specifically that you look out for? Maybe you can tell us about where you are in Malaysia. Some of the teachers that I speak to overseas, for example, they say some of the children in Brunei, for example, they are so respectful and they are so kind and so loving. But any cultural differences that you came across that would be interesting to share?
The Chinese nation and the Asian nation as a whole, I think, are very respectful. They honor their elders, and they grow up with a lot of like lessons to follow, the way they do things, how to treat an elder. So this Asian world has been like a world of respect, where you see how they treat the elders, how they treat their teachers. Most Asian schools remove their shoes, when it comes to like cleanliness, all these little, life, just ethics and
Yes.
morals that they stand by. It does make the teaching easier being in Brunei, being in Malaysia. I believe China is the same. Um, culturally, and then if you compare like the Middle East, they are very wealthy. Well, currently my school I'm at are also very wealthy Koreans and Chinese, but like they just have a different way of upbringing. I think the upbringing, that's what it is.
Yes.
Um, so Middle East does pose more behavioral challenges.
Okay. Okay.
You can't
And
exactly pinpoint,
yes.
but yeah.
But I think these are great points you shared, and it's very realistic. In terms of your mindset, you need to have before you even get to the country. And cultural awareness, it helps you shape the way you teach and connect. So for those feeling inspired, by this podcast or are interested in teaching overseas, it's a nice start as to what to expect there. And on that point, Sarah, like say if I wanted to now pivot in my career and I get to a nice TEFL offering, you mentioned there's different prices and packages and organizations offering it. Are there any specific ones you would recommend that would give me a global passport that will be relevant and recognized everywhere? And how is it like in terms of traveling and earning an income, what would be like your first pointers you would give me? So in summary, which TEFL should I pursue, and what are my first pointers in starting out in my career, hopefully traveling abroad and teaching TEFL?
So realistically, when you go abroad and you at the HR, they don't really bother what university you did the TEFL with.
Okay.
So at any TEFL is fine. I basically did the cheapest TEFL, which was in Cape Town a few years ago, and I went to Cape Town for the TWEAK TEFL because it was way cheaper than the ones offered in the Joburg areas.
Yes.
Um, Also, like I mentioned before, like in Saudi, if you have any degree, you'd be able to teach. So you wouldn't even need a TEFL then.
Okay. It would just
So
start
if you have any, yeah, if you have any bachelor's degree, you don't really need the TEFL. If you don't have any qualification, then you could do the TEFL to
yes.
get in at a language school, or even to teach a language, or even to be like a teacher assistant, they would take you on.
Yes.
As long as you're a native speaker, as we South Africans are, you stand a very high chance of getting, like, even you could be a teacher assistant, even like nursing jobs. Like teaching is not the only career.
Yes.
So you could go into banking. There's so many fields.
Yes.
I find with many people, they just scared to try because you are settled back home, you have a stable job, and the thought of leaving that is the fear.
Yes.
For more like single people or maybe couples just starting out and they don't have major responsibilities, they could, go online, find something, even if one person in the relationship has something. Once you're in a country, it's easier to find something for your partner, or
Yes.
even if you're both at a language school. um, yeah.
And I think that's brilliant advice. And the fact that you help others to take this leap is amazing. And that's where I'd like to end off this podcast. Zaida, you offer South African teachers assistance through your business to edit and improve their CVs to start from there. You give them advice, you give them encouragement and counseling. Can you break down for us what is it in terms of assistance that you offer? And how can people get hold of you for your consulting services? In which countries can you assist? How does it work?
So when I started off, I was just like sort of helping friends and people who knew me, sharing vacancies via WhatsApp. But it became like so many of sending that I created the Instagram traveling teacher.
Yes,
So that really grew beyond my expectations, actually. And I thought it was just easier to post the vacancies, at one place and people could just view them, because many people don't know where to apply and how to apply. So they have a teaching degree, but they don't know where to get started. So besides applying directly to schools, there's a lot of recruitment agencies as well. But sometimes it's actually better to apply directly to schools.
yeah,
And then also, sometimes you make a contact. Like I've been at so many schools over the last 10 years. You make a contact with every HR that you work with, you make friends. So when you send a friend CV, they'll look at it. And, wherever you are in the world, it is who you know.
yes.
um, that's just the way of life, and that's how it is, everywhere in the world. So, just by sending a friend CV, they look at it because now you know so and so, the principal, you know the HR. So that helps in a big way. I've made a lot of contacts over the years. I'm a person that makes effort to get to know people and keep with people. It's just the person I am. So I've made a lot of leads and friends along the way, that has actually like helped me now like promote this, what I'm doing, that happened so quickly. That wasn't really intentional, and it just grew. I feel privileged to be able to help people. Most of the people who actually call me, they know the direction, but they're afraid and just need more motivation, actually. So sometimes when I have like a consultation, I feel like it was more like a motivational talk to give them courage to actually go. And like a lot of people will ask me, what if it doesn't work out? And my husband and I always tell them that what's the worst that could happen? That you come back home and everything at home is still going to be there, your family, your friends, your house. So why not, take the leap and try, because you've got nothing to lose. There's nothing to lose.
And that's such a positive way of looking at things. And sometimes a person just needs that final push and encouragement.
Yeah,
Because sometimes you have everything you need, but you just doubt yourself, and
exactly.
pointing them in the right direction, the networks you've developed. That is excellent, Zaira, and I'm sure many listening to this podcast. Please, as Zaira mentioned, you can follow her on Traveling Teacher and on Instagram. And I know you do have a WhatsApp group also for those who are interested in
Yes.
keeping up with the positions and communicating. So definitely a conversation to be carried on well beyond this podcast. Zaira, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners from your side?
Just wanted to add that it's Traveling Teacher ZHD, because there's a
Traveling
few
teachers
Traveling Teacher
village.
accounts.
Okay.
Yeah, Traveling Teacher ZHD. And if anyone would like to join the WhatsApp group for the vacancies, because for some reason Instagram was not allowing me to post vacancies
Okay.
lately. Yeah, so that's the reason I needed to start the WhatsApp account for the vacancies.
Yes, but we'll put all your details on this podcast. Anybody would like to get in touch with you, we encourage it, both Traveling Teachers, ZHD, and your WhatsApp group account as well. I would just like to say to you, Zaira, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your story. And I think you've really shown us that teaching can open not just doors to new careers, but a whole new world. At Roshko Talk, we truly believe in sharing stories like yours to inspire. And I think it's more than traveling and teaching, it's about building a life with purpose and following your dreams. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. It was definitely felt. And for all the listeners, if this episode resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you know a teacher or someone who's been interested in this field, please forward this link to them and let them get in touch with Zaira. They just may find the next chapter through Zaira's story that she shared. Until the next time from Roshkol Talk, stay inspired and keep reaching for your dreams.